Yo, yo, yo. What's good? What's good? It's Stormy B, man, and I am tired. I've been trying to get this thing going, you guys. I am so sorry. Of course, things happen as soon as you try to go live. And welcome to Is There a Play for a Return to the Snyderverse, an offshoot of Nerds on Culture, where I will talk about things like this. It's supposed to be broadcast on my Temple of Culture and Entertainment channel. Couldn't get it going over there. It's supposed to be broadcast on Rumble. Couldn't get it going over there. So I'm right here on my main channel, which wasn't supposed to be on here, but I've run into so many problems, you guys. I told you I'm a novice at this, trying to switch things up. But for those of you who've been patient enough just to hang in there with me, man, thank you so much. You know, but it's very disheartening when you don't know how to resolve an issue that should be a real simple fix. The whole idea of this stream tonight was just to bring a conversation forward, talking about what's happening with the sale of DC Warner Brothers, or Warner Brothers Discovery DC, where we have James Gunn as the CEO overseeing the DC properties. There have been numerous things transpiring in the news as of late, with some simple gestures by Zack Snyder posting images from when he was shooting his DC films, Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Justice League, you know, and he's been uploading images, getting a swell of support from people who missed the properties that he had brought to screen and to life. The irony has been James Gunn's been very quiet throughout this process, but what it's also speaking volumes of is that the people are torn. They're torn between what was and what is presently, and Gunn hasn't done himself any favors with some of the IP that he has taken over and presented to the audiences. It has pretty much been a lot of what people didn't ask for. You know, one of the things is he has brought forth characters such as Blue Beetle, Creature Commandos, his own version of Suicide Squad, of course, Superman, and people haven't responded positively. So, for the most part, those who are enthusiastic about embracing something new, of course, he has seen the endorsement there, but that's not necessarily what people really want. A lot of his projects have offset humor, is vulgarity. There's adult circumstances that border on either profane or lewd and lascivious, and it is like people are just not responding to that. Excuse me, not when it comes to their comic book IP. One of the most wicked things I had heard about excuse me, was his Peacemaker season 2 series. The season opener featured an orgy. I didn't see it myself, so I can't comment on what took place. But when I heard about it, I knew that I withdrew from it and said, you know what, that's nothing I want to see. I want to see these characters off the pages as Zach was doing. And the interesting thing is, when Zach put together BVS, the insertion of Wonder Woman, where they called it Dawn of Justice, Dawn of the Justice League, I thought that was, initially I was like, oh, it's interesting the way that they brought that together. But of course, he had a plan to go beyond BVS. The studios never let him fulfill that. Now, what was interesting in juxtaposition of Marvel is that when he started this universe of characters, there was a dramatic byline to what you were witnessing as a viewing audience. You saw serious scenarios and serious consequences. There was no loosey-goosey jokes every few minutes, or when something serious happens being followed up by a joke. Any humor was on the level of subdued, but at the same time, we were to take the characters serious. And see, that's something that was totally different. Marvel actually initially started out that way with Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk and films that were coming after that before the Avengers. They began to change after the first Avengers film. But the initial introduction of the characters of their universe cinematically was given to us so we would care about the people. Well, Zach was able to do that when he introduced a new, updated, modern telling of the Superman mythos with Man of Steel, but also the fact that we were introduced to a Batman that was already 20 years into his career of being Batman. That was something different. And of course, Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman, had been around since the turn of the century, and no one knew where she was or why she was away. All of these bylines were to be covered as he went forward. of course, you can't do it all in one film. And he was vilified, actually, by some segments of the viewing audience for what they called including too many characters in the film within its inception. And they were building their universe differently from Marvel. Marvel was setting out with introduction of characters with their own films, culminating with them all coming together and teaming up to become the Avengers. In this, Zach let us know that the meta beings were already in existence, even though Kal-El hadn't introduced himself to the world until the third act of Man of Steel. But there's a very important line of dialogue from Man of Steel when Kal-El is speaking with his dad, Jor-El, and Jor-El is telling him that you can save them all, meaning the people of the earth, and soon they will join you in the sun. You see, when he conveyed that message to Kal, he was giving him the understanding of the responsibility that he had with the powers that he possessed under the yellow sun in Earth's atmosphere, that he was capable of being a god-like being to them. And the interesting aspect is, by the time BVS was over with, the second film, Kal was gone. Now you have to wonder, like, what do you do when your main godlike figure, hero, is done away with? It's a call to arms for the other meta beings to come together, you see? That was a different point of storytelling, and we didn't embrace it like we should have, because it was different. You know, even in reading the comics, DC's comics and Marvel's comics are two different vibes. Marvel could have serious themes, but there was always an element of not taking itself too serious, but at the same time giving you script, dialogue, as well as vocabulary that would make a kid have to go to the dictionary to understand what was being spoken about. On the DC side of things, the dramatic element of real life scenarios, the telling of real issues between the genders of the characters, as well as political elements to a certain degree. The overall vibe was just a little bit more serious than what Marvel did. That didn't make it better. It made it different. And you had contrast. And what's great about having contrast is contrast allows you to see certain things clearer, to put other things at the forefront, or even to acknowledge what's in the backdrop. That's what you have with contrast. It's a representation of totality, but at the same time, perspective. I think in these times, we have gotten away from the understanding of those virtues, and it causes us to become selfish within what we're doing, our actions, our thought process, the way we interpret information. And that makes a difference. I was talking with some of the brothers before about the film Wonder Woman. One of the great moments of that film was when Diana Prince displayed her abilities. People were awestruck by what she was capable of doing and what she actually had done, but they never questioned her being a woman doing so. Anytime that you can draw attention to the individual's actions, their expressions, their emotions, and things of that nature without looking at the gender, without defining, oh, that's a woman saying that, that's a woman doing that, that's a man doing this. To take that out of what you're experiencing and just to be able to take on what's being experienced is one of the greatest ways of conveying a real message that we've been able to receive. And the director of the film, Patty Jenkins, did that wonderfully. Just as in this scene right here that's depicted with this little clip from BVS, shortly before this tremendous shot of the Trinity, Cal looked at Bruce Wayne, Batman, and asked him when he saw Diana join their battle against Doomsday. He looked over at him. He said, "Is she with you?" And Batman responded, "I thought she was with you," because she was powerful and she was battling and she showed elements of not being a typical person. So knowing that Cal is from another planet, Batman has already surmised that wherever she's from, you know, she's not normal. Okay, he's deducted that much. Again, the communication, wonderfully done. We all took that for granted because there were times during the film where I'm trying to get something off of my laptop here. It looks like I don't know what that is. It's in the way though. Let's see what that is. My goodness, there's always something in it. Anyway, all of this, Zack Snyder was establishing something, and it was going to be something very fruitful. Warner Brothers Studios interfered tremendously. Not only did they interfere with what was being created, but they only saw that they wanted a certain box office to rival what Marvel was doing. Instead of allowing their universe to build, they cut corners, they cut the talent, they cut back on the creative process, and they were constantly shooting themselves in the foot. So what ended up happening, Zack Snyder, due to some unfortunate events that in his personal life, had to step away from the projects. They brought in someone else to finish what he had completed, but then they decided to go in a different direction overall. Fast forward a few years later, James Gunn from Marvel was given an opportunity to take over and lead DC IP into a new direction. If you know anything about what James Gunn has done in the past with his films, particularly, let's talk about during this genre. We'll talk about the Guardians of the Galaxy. His interpretation of what was known from the comic page has never went in unison together. He has always taken what we knew to be familiar and put it in a twisted on its head end where people didn't even really recognize certain characters from their inception on the page of the graphics. One example of this is when he was doing the Guardians of the Galaxy films. Drax the Destroyer, who was a warrior, an intergalactic warrior who was hell-bent on avenging his family, which Thanos had wiped out, he sought Thanos out so he could delete him. Zack the Destroyer in the Guardians films was turned into a character of one-liners and comic relief, and also showed lack of intelligence in certain aspects and extreme intelligence in others, which is really weird, because how can you do that to the same character? But that's exactly what we experienced, and it was played for laughs. When he was given the opportunity to take over DC properties, and he launched his plans for what would be coming, one of his initial projects that he said was a cartoon called Creature Commandos. Dude, before he mentioned it, I didn't even know who the hell the Creature Commandos were. People want to see Batman, Superman, Flash, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern. You know, they want to see the real royalty of DC. And he comes in and he's giving us the Blue Beetle. I mean, as tough as it is, not listening to your fan base is one of the worst things you could do as a creator out there. And DC has done that on a continuous basis. They have not listened to their fan base. It's one of the things that they have helped themselves, and then they blame the director like Snyder, or they even blame some of the actors and actresses when the people actually accepted these people in their roles. It's really a difficult thing to deal with. I don't know, man. I didn't watch the new Superman 2025. And I did so in protest, because I was like, man, why are you giving us what we don't want when we had what we wanted? And you're just shoving it in our face like that. And then I heard the stories from how Cal's family was told to be about and represent, how he needed the assistance of others, but being Superman was secondary and taking basically crap and getting beat up all the time. It's like, dude, that's not Superman. Why would I even invest and waste my money on that? And I'm not trying to encourage or discourage anyone else to follow my lead, but I'm talking about what I want to see. It's just like I've given up on watching some of the Disney Plus shows that Marvel had put together, because they diluted the product so much and they woke everything up to a degree that it's not interesting anymore. That show that had Samuel L. Jackson mating up with aliens, you just really bastardized everything that Nick Fury meant in all of the other films that came prior. Secret Invasion was one of the worst things you could ever sit down and watch. She-Hulk gave it a hell of a run for its money. But anytime they want to take characters who lead and take you from a point of existing one way and to a stratosphere in another, it's like that's a ride that you want to be on. But when they started doing these things just for the sake of what they call, what is it? DNI, DIN, whatever that is, the inclusion and all of that stuff. Please, if you look at who created these characters and everything, there was so much inclusion. There's so broad a work to be included, to put cinematically. You don't have to force it. But that seems to be the thing of today, to just force something upon you. It's like listening to music. If you are a person who is old enough to remember soul music, real R&B, real pop music, real rock, soft rock, hard rock, the stuff that they force on you today is as that didn't exist and it's like it's not real or whatever. And it's like, no, there are people who are on this earth today who were born because of some of that music, you know? So you mean you want to erase not only that, but your own history? If someone thinks that what I'm talking about doesn't tie in, Zack Snyder was building a universe, and he was given the keys to do this because when Christopher Nolan was a part of the initiation, the launch, they wanted a darker Superman. They wanted it to be of that element that was similar to the Dark Knight series and Batman Begins that Nolan had done. It wasn't Zack Snyder. It was what they had asked of Zack Snyder. So when you think about it, he was only following the instructions and directions of which he was given, and he did very well by it. What James Gunn is doing, who in the world, do you know what? It's like a kid that was locked into a play lot by himself and decided to just play to his heart's content, taking sand out of the sandbox and putting it on the dry ground, taking water and putting it in the sandbox, taking things that are hanging and bringing them down on the ground, and taking stuff that was on the ground, trying to hang it up in the air. This is what James Gunn has been doing, turning things on its end. It was once said by someone, I forget who quoted it and coined the phrase. They said that he bastardizes everything as far as real comic IP, comic and graphic IP that he gets his hands on. My version of so-and-so, my interpretation of so-and-so, so egotistical that he's not even looking at the source material that has existed before he was born. And he's just going to turn it into something different. That's not pleasant. That's not what the people want. I'm really sorry I got off to a late start here. And this is not being projected across my other channels like I had wanted it to be. It's very unfortunate that we arrived in this place because I was trying to do my best. I was really trying to do my best. We should have known that James Gunn didn't have a clue when not only did he dismiss Henry Cavill as Superman, knowing that audiences loved the man and wanted him back, knowing that the executives of the studios told him to go out and announce that he was back after having a cameo appearance in Black Adam, but he cast a guy who kind of looks like Henry, a few years younger, but just to flip things on its end. And that woeful costume that they put on David Corenswet, who was the one cast as Kal-El Clark Superman, looked like a outfit out of Guardians of the Galaxy that Peter Quill would wear. It's all baggy and wrinkly and everything. Superman's costume is a tight fit, showing the muscles off and everything. But that's not what Gunn gave us. And though Cornsweat, who's a few inches taller than Henry Cavill, went to the gym and actually really worked out for the role, you saw no signs of him having worked out, because it went to pass. A baggy suit that's wrinkly and everything, and they tried to tighten it up in post-production a little bit, but the damage was already done when people saw that stuff. My whole thing is, give me something to invest in where I can return. When I go to the theater, I want to be able to escape for the 2 hours or 2+ hours that my time is there. It's an escape from the reality of everyday life, working, paying bills, having stress and strife, health, wealth, whatever. So it's a time to get around and say, hey, you know what? Let's kick back, have some popcorn and a drink, and just enjoy being entertained. Not being dictated to, not being admonished for anything. Just escape. What in the world is James Gunn doing, man? So when I ask the question, is there a play for a return to the Snyderverse? Though Warner Brothers DC is being touted as being up for sale, there are entities out there interested in purchasing, and there are followers of the IP that are hoping for change away from what Gunn is doing, because they just want to get back to some quality storytelling and to see their characters portrayed the way that they remember them. Not foul-mouthed, not exploited and explicit with nudity and all of that kind of thing, but just good old-fashioned storytelling. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not what he's trying to give. And the other thing about him is he's very disingenuous. You have to pay attention when he says things. He has told so many untrue circumstances of his involvement in this process that I don't know why anyone would want to trust the man. But what's more interesting is the fact that the executives that have allowed him to get away with this I don't know what that's all about. But the people are speaking up. When Snyder unleashed those photos over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, the Man of Steel image, the Batman Nightmare image, the Joker image, and even recently another Man of Steel image. He has done this because he knows that people have a love for what he did. But there's a sentiment amongst those that are thinking that maybe he knows something about the sale of Warner Brothers DC, and that there may be hope that he can return to these IP properties and do them justice. Whether he does or doesn't, another change is due. And what's also disheartening is the fact that some of the people that are running these studios, they don't have a clue about that stuff. They just want to know what their profits are. One thing you could give Kevin Feige about running the Marvel Studios as an executive producer is that he always sought to deliver to the fans who were familiar with the IP and familiar with generations of storytelling. Present them with something that would make them be absorbed and care. Even if it involved revealing something, but he's like, well, we'll save that to the side for later. But he understands and acknowledges that that is a piece that should fit in, but just not at the moment. We'll wait to deliver that. An example of that is if you watched all the 22 films of Marvel, once Captain America was involved, and he became the leader of the Avengers with all of the circumstances that they found themselves fighting against. Ultron, Loki in the battle in New York, just so many different things. Civil War. Cap, being the leader in the comics, would always say, as a battle rallying cry, "Avengers assemble." That was his thing, always. He never said it in any other films until Endgame. And in that moment when he said those lines, the theater erupted. Kevin Feige knew how to take something like that and just hold it until the right time. James Gunn doesn't have that type of depth of perception. He doesn't. And it's unfortunate because he's been put in a role where he's supposed to exercise that. He could have retained Henry Cavill as Superman and did a soft reboot. He talked about there being Elseworlds stories, like other dimensions, other timelines, or whatever. He never delivered anything like that, but it was good talk. It was good to hear somebody say something like that, a multiverse type of deal. He didn't do it though. There are things that we just are not going to get with someone like that helming the ship. We got to get better. We got to do better. The guy is hell-bent on vulgarity, profanity, and all of that kind of stuff. And he also likes to take the primary characters and have them beaten up or downtrodden and disrespected to a degree that it's like, man, what's the point of being a hero? What is the point? If you're going to be out there and people are just going to have their way kicking you in your butt. And you're supposed to save people from the butt kickers, huh? So if there is a play for the return to the Snyderverse, of course I would embrace that. But it's not just about restoring the Snyderverse. It's about being true to the IP. Being true. And that's where we need the help. That's where we need to see things progress. Yeah, so these are some of my thoughts, you guys. You don't have to agree with them, but just know that when we talk about this stuff, it's like, hey, there's a reason, there's purpose behind this, huh? So I think that's about it for this evening that I have to talk about, you guys, because I just wanted to come out. There's a lot of news out there. Some people are feeling like maybe there's going to be a change. And they feel strongly about seeing something that is more favored, like the Snyder films, to return so that they can return. But we just never know how things are going to go. So it's good to hope, but also be prepared for change. Something that is a part of our everyday lives, being prepared for change. That's important. So with that being said, I'm going to get ready to get on out of here. I thank those who hung in with me for that 20 minutes of delay that I had. My goodness, man. This was supposed to be broadcast on my Temple of Culture and Entertainment channel. Couldn't get it going over there. So it ended up having to be on my main channel. And that really hurts my feelings because I was really trying to move some things around and everything, and it just didn't work out. But for those of you who hung around, you got a chance to hear what I had to say, what my subject was for this evening. And it's not about bashing anything. It's about clamoring for the best of what we can see, And it's important to know that, There's nothing that's perfect. But to be able to turn on a film and see your favorite characters or whatever getting proper representation, that means a lot. A hell of a lot. So I'm going to get on up out of here. Didn't feel like doing a Tuesday tussle this evening. Just why I wanted to do this. But, hey. It is what it is. But we're going to get on up out of here. I want to say shout out to the mighty LDBC. I thank you guys for tuning in. And we will catch you guys on the next one. And just know that I'm always going to come back and talk about this DC Warner Brothers thing. And as soon as I start getting some concrete information on Avengers Doomsday, which will be the next big thing coming next year from Marvel, I'll talk about that a little more. There's a lot going on where they trying to drop spoilers for the trailers and this and that. It's like, I don't like to get into that part. I just want to get into the meat and potatoes of who's going to be a part of the project and what we can expect the project to deliver as far as going in certain directions. That's important to me. And word is having it that they've already found the new Black Panther. They just haven't officially announced it yet. And the young man who it may be, I'm very happy if it is going to be him. I will say that. But I'm not going to drop his name right now because it hasn't really officially been stated. But there's been enough out there happening to let people know that it is probably what's going to happen. So, with that, I'm getting on out of here. Thank you guys. And we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.